Welcome to Streaming with Two Dudes, a podcast about all things streaming. Each episode, we break down some of the best series, songs, movies, and shows. I'm one dude, Parker.
And I'm the other dude, Jeff.
And dudes, this episode, we're talking about Cobra Kai, Season 5, Episodes 2 and 3. But first, Jeff, what else have you been streaming?
Well, actually, you talked me into something recently. I'd also seen it advertised a good bit on Amazon Prime. A little show called Paper Girls, new show, season 1. I think both of us had kind of heard some comparisons to Stranger Things, which we were both huge fans of.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't we watch it at the same time?
Yeah, we did. I think I got it a little bit. I was a little bit ahead of you, but not by much.
Okay. So I guess my overall take is great show. Loved it. I don't think it's going to see the level of success that like a Stranger Things did.
Yeah.
I hope it does well because I would like to see more seasons. I guess the similarity is there's a lot of child actors, a lot of great acting. The child acting in some of these series is just mind-blowing between Stranger Things and even this show. A lot of course, it's a all-female cast as far as the girls that it centers around, but the characters are great. The relationship building there. Yeah, I would recommend it. Just don't be too disappointed if you're like, oh, it's like Stranger Things, but great show. And I'm excited to see what I assume is going to be season 2 sometime next year. So what about you? Anything you're streaming, reading, listening to?
This might be something you may or may not be familiar with. I'm going to recommend the new reboot of Beavis and Butthead. I've been watching it on Paramount Plus. They've been releasing like the new episodes on there, and I don't know if you watched the original show at all, if you're a fan of it, but originally.
Did you see my jaw literally drop? How have I not heard about this?
Okay. Well, for those that are also unfamiliar with it, they still have the shorts where they do, they have their little antics. They'll watch a music video every once in a while, but they'll also do, like they've been watching YouTube videos. I don't think they've done any TikToks or anything like that, but it's mostly just them doing commentaries on YouTube videos, and it's hilarious.
And you said this is on Paramount?
It is. It's on Paramount Plus.
I guess I'm gonna have to get Paramount Plus. So,
man, it's so great.
I mean, Beavis and Butthead, the whole idea of it didn't necessarily fit my personality.
Yeah.
When I was in high school when that really came out and got popular, but for whatever reason, I loved it. It was just my wife and I, we've been married 20 something years. Probably should know the exact number. I'm going to say 23. When we first met back in, about to show my age here, 1997, we actually met on the internet. But the first time we spent time together, the first thing we watched was Beavis and Butthead.
Really?
It was actually the movie. Was it like Beavis and Butthead Do America? Something like that? Do I have that right? Oh my God, you're holding up a book or something.
Yeah, I actually have a copy of the official script book with the foreword by Mike Judge.
Oh, wow.
I was like, how funny is that this was what I was using to write on earlier? And it came up. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm writing that down. I'm going to check that out. That's definitely a blast from the past. And
man, it's great.
I'll still occasionally like break out my Beavis or Butthead impression or my voice just every once in a while, just in random situations.
Yeah, fire.
Beavis, shut up.
Oh, that's actually pretty good, dude. That's a pretty good. That's a pretty good butthead. I'm proud of you, man. That's great.
Beavis, I have seen the light. Oh, okay, that's enough of that.
All right. So this week we watched season 5 of we watched episodes 2 and 3 of season 5 of Cobra Kai. We're gonna go over our 3 points. Last week Jeff went first, so this week I will go first with my number 3, and my number 3 is going to be Miguel's dad. He was a douchebag, we find out, and so I wasn't really surprised.
Props to Sensei Parker. You nailed that one. You really did.
I did. I mean, well, it's honestly, I had no reason to not trust Carmen. Just the vibe that they gave, like that I got. I didn't think. I mean, obviously, you couldn't tell from the first episode. There was no reason that Miguel and his grandmother would both lie about it and hate him so much without him being bad. So I just knew that I don't know. I just had a feeling.
Well, I mean, even like for myself, my number one theory was that it was the first Hector that he met,
Yeah.
which was portrayed as an evil bad guy.
Hmm.
And I thought the second one was just going to be a representation of what he wanted.
Yeah.
And then he was going to find out, no, actually, it was the first Hector that was your dad. He was just lying to you about, all the details. So, but you nailed it. You also nailed the whole idea of how much time they were going to spend with that. Pretty
2 days
much.
or 2 episodes.
Yeah, I think you said 2, maybe 3, and I was like, I really hope they give it at least a good 5, 6 episodes. I'm still a little disappointed they didn't, but I'm not mad about it. But I thought that kind of story arc deserved a little bit more time. But you
I
nailed
think
it.
they did it. I think they did it perfectly, honestly. That the whole Mexico thing was just done extremely well. They wrapped it up quick. They gave him a reason to both be excited for it and be pulled in close enough to realize that his dad is as crazy as his mom was saying. And so I'm glad he got to see that so that he never had to wonder. I feel like that's going to close up, a storyline that, people were probably wondering, like, well, why doesn't he? And it's gonna make him and Johnny be able to bond and get closer, and it's probably gonna also bring him and Robbie closer together as well because they'll have that in common. Now that, this is going on, I'm starting to kind of see maybe a situation where Robbie and Miguel team up to help Johnny, and maybe that's what brings them together in some future episode or situation. We'll see. We'll see. What is your number 3?
All right, so since you're in Mexico, I'm going to come back to the mainland in the All Valley area.
The mainland. I don't think Mexico's an island.
Sorry about that. I used to have family that lived in Hawaii, so I got so accustomed to the U.S. where everybody else was being referred to as the mainland.
That's funny.
Which makes more sense being, in Hawaii and they are an island. But anyway.
It's all right. I knew what you meant.
Hey, you had candles last week. So this week I have the mainland. So it's only fair. So the first one I'm going to throw out, my number 3, is actually about Tori. Of course, we're big fans of her and her character. We had talked about the way the last season ended. How was she going to deal with the knowledge about Tori as far as the way season 4 ended? How are they going to move her along the storyline with her knowing that Terry Silver paid off the referee, that her championship was tainted? She didn't earn it genuinely. She obviously, you could tell she was troubled by it. So I personally thought that maybe that would play out for a good chunk of season 5, because from the trailer, we noticed that she appeared to be with Cobra Kai possibly all season long. So I figured, okay, this is going to be kind of drawn out. So I was a little surprised that they dealt with it so quickly. Obviously, she didn't even appear in the first episode, which a lot of the kids didn't, outside of like Miguel and Robbie. But we do see her struggling at first. You can tell her attitude's different.
Yeah.
She makes, Kenny ask her about the trophy, and she's just like, not today. Actually, she gets teamed up with Chosen. You can tell she's just sluggish in her training. And actually, Chosen has that conversation with her about honor, and you can tell it's really hitting a chord with her. And she's just struggling with it. So that they dealt with it. But then, she approaches Silver about it like that same day. And of course, Silver, being the mastermind he is, he approached it from an angle that speaks directly to her life situation. He kind of made the comment, is it wrong for a starving person to steal food?
Right.
And in her situation, she's always struggled with that because, she's been dealt a rough hand. So she's always had the attitude that, hey, you got to fight for what's yours. Forget the rules.
I think he knows that, and that's exactly why he made that analogy.
Oh, for sure. He was very intentional with that. Mm-hmm. But he also kind of played it cool, like, hey, if you want to leave, totally understand. No hard feelings, which we both know that wouldn't have been the case.
Right.
But hey, I want to make Cobra Kai about you. You're going to be front and center. So he made his pitch. It seemed to work, although I still think we will see her struggle with it off and on during the season. I think me and you probably both agree that we feel like the story arc is still going to move her eventually to whether it's Miyagi-Do or just to the good side, if you want to call it that. I think we're both hoping that there's some kind of, I'm not sure the word I want to use here, but with her and Sam
Some
teaming up.
reconciliation at least.
Yeah. So kind of make amends with Sam. I think we're both rooting for that. So I was still a little surprised that they wrapped it up so quick. That was something kind of like Mexico. I thought it was going to play out longer, which kind of leads me into a sub thought from this same topic. I got a feeling we're going to disagree on this, which will make for good conversation. But it's not an opinion I would say I'm passionate about. But it seems like oftentimes when a story arc is presented, whether it's Tori and the whole cheating scandal, Miguel and Mexico, even which we hadn't gotten into it yet, and maybe one of our other topics, but even the whole Chosen Silver thing with Chosen being the mole, even that was wrapped up within one episode. I almost feel like that they don't spend enough time with some of these story arcs. And it made me think of a term that my wife has often used. She's a big reader, especially with like romance novels. Maybe you've heard the term before. It's called slow burn. And she got so excited when I asked her about it earlier today. I was like, I want to ask you about your idea of slow burn, what it means to you, what you think the pros and cons were. Of course, she just lit up. And, basically, that's her favorite type of story arc is the one that takes the slow burn approach, where you got two characters and you put a lot of thought and effort in their interactions, and the pace is kind of slow, but it's not in a bad way. It's bringing the viewer or the reader along, almost like a constant tease, but it's building up to kind of the end, and usually it's very rewarding because of that journey you've been on. I'm a little torn because I do think there's pros and cons. Obviously, I think from their perspective, they don't have a whole lot of time. They do 10 episodes a season, only 30 minutes. They got a ton of characters, a lot of different things to deal with. So I get it, but I won't lie. I'm still a little disappointed with some of the story arcs, and I feel like it's just wrapped up a little too quick, and then it's just kind of moved on to something else.
Yeah, I am surprised by how quickly they are handling some of those things. The Mexico storyline, I obviously saw that one coming. But Tori confronting Silver was something that I definitely didn't see happening in the second episode. And I also didn't see Silver catching on to Chosen so quickly. All of that happened so fast. But I also think that there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot that's gonna happen. Am I disappointed that some of these things didn't build a little bit more tension? Yeah. But at the same time, we haven't seen the full season yet, so we really don't know if this is building to something even bigger. We don't know where we're at yet. This could all be like, oh, I'm so glad that they didn't spend as much time on those episodes because this was so much more important now that, in hindsight. So I don't know. It's right now I'm a little quick to judge on how disappointed I am on it. But I will say I would have liked to have at least seen a little bit more Silver and Chosen before Chosen got found out.
Yeah, I was so psyched, the way season one ended. But at the same time, the whole time I'm thinking, how is Silver not going to know who this guy is? I mean, this is 2022.
Right.
I mean, with social media and obviously with all the power and resources that he has, I'm like, how is he? So in a way, it kind of makes sense that it happened quick because it was a risky mission to begin with, and it's actually kind of cool the way he picked up on it with the way they did the toast.
Yeah.
And he knew, which I didn't think about it till later, which probably means he was playing with them all along after that.
Yeah.
Which I guess you wouldn't really realize until he revealed, how his cover was more or less blown. But
Which was one of the benefits of getting to watch this multiple times to take notes and stuff. Yeah.
But as far as this whole the main point I brought up, I was cutting grass earlier, and my grass cutting time, of course, I'm on a riding mower. That's some of my best thinking time, kind of like what some people get in the shower. Mine usually happens on the riding mower. I kind of look back and I was like, you know what? They do use the slow burn approach on a lot of the main storylines.
Yeah.
When you look at Johnny's growth in his character, I mean that's been a slow process, but done very effectively. The issue between Miguel and Robbie, that's something that started early season 2. So, and that's obviously going to carry on through season 5. Even the rivalry between Sam and Tori is kind of playing out slowly. So, the more I look back, I was like, obviously, there's a lot of story arcs that you have to wrap up quick, but they do have others that are still playing out that have kind of been more of that slow burn that kind of brings you along the ride and you get more invested in. And like we mentioned, a lot of it, I think, is just time.
Yeah.
I think I don't remember if I mentioned on podcast or just with me and you talking about it. At one point, I heard the writers, and I think they said this early on in the series, that they always envision this as kind of like a 6-season series.
Mm-hmm.
And if that plays out, then they've only got one more season after this one. Right. So they probably know what their end goal is, and they've only got so much time to make it happen. So, I mean, that could be why we see some of these story arcs just kind of almost feel rushed or wrapped up super quick.
Yeah, I also think that for the most part, all of the important ones, they all do take time.
I have learned, though, to when a new arc is presented, don't overthink it. Even though I might think it's a setup for a big storyline, you know, it in their minds, it's just like a little side plot while the main stuff's kind of going in the background. So I'll kind of learn to quit getting my hopes up on some of these story arcs.
All right. Well, what's your number 2?
All right. So I don't know if you deal with this, but I almost feel guilty because I'm like, man, I hope I don't take one of the ones that he's really excited about. I'm just
I get to talk about it either way.
Well, that's true. So I won't feel too bad. To me, between episodes 2 and 3, there were definitely a couple of what the moments. And the first one, to me, was Carmen getting pregnant.
Yeah.
That's not a story arc that I would have ever envisioned in a million years. I'm sure a lot of that has to do with their age, which we don't know how old Carmen is. To me, she seems obviously younger than Johnny's character, but I mean, Johnny's character is what, early 50s or around 50?
Yeah.
I mean, he has a 16, 17-year-old son. So I never considered that. And actually, not only was I shocked when they first went down that road, but as it came to a close, I was convinced, oh, this was basically just setting Johnny up to portray his character growth. Because, you know, he didn't handle it well at first, but then you see him doing all this stuff and really cool segments there on how he just really stepped up big time. So when she came to tell him, I was convinced that she wasn't.
Yeah, same.
That it served its purpose. It showed how Johnny handled it. It showed his growth, all that stuff. But then when she said she was, I was like, holy cow. I mean, that is insane.
Yeah, that was a shock. I was expecting them to, you know, not be, but her see that he was excited for it and him realize that he was actually excited for it. And then them decide to actually start trying for one or something like that. But yeah, totally shocked when she was actually pregnant, but proud of Johnny. I'm proud of him. Proud of my boy.
Yeah. So now I'm just curious, you know, where do they move on from? Obviously there's a lot of different angles they can go. It can be a false positive. And it still served its purpose of how it brought them together, how Johnny handled it. I mean, there could be the drama of a miscarriage. They could go that route, or she can carry it to term and give birth, and Johnny becomes a dad and has kind of a second chance to do it right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Not to mention the comedy that would come not only with that, but just throughout the whole pregnancy.
Could you imagine a spinoff with Miguel and Robbie raising their little brother?
I didn't.
My two brothers.
Yeah. Now that you said that, I never considered with Johnny and Carmen that they become brothers, like half brothers.
Yeah, they'll both be half brothers with this new little baby. Oh, assuming that, yeah.
But I mean, just the comedy that's come from that already with what Johnny practicing swaddling a baby on a case of beer. But yeah, I mean, we really see Johnny shine. He even gave Miguel great advice, which even shocked Miguel.
Yeah.
An interesting scene, though. I don't know if you picked up on this, but it was after he, I guess, fumigated his entire apartment. He was wearing the gas mask or whatever.
Yeah.
And there towards the very end, when he was laying on the floor exhausted with the mask beside him, and the laptop is playing, and it's playing that baby video, and he reaches over and closes the laptop. That scene was in the trailer, only the laptop was playing the Cobra Kai commercial promo.
Nice. I did not catch that.
So when I saw that, I was like, wait. And then I even went back and watched the trailer, and it is the exact same scene. I mean, everything's the exact same. The only thing that's changed is when he closes the laptop, the trailer gives you the impression he's disgusted with Cobra Kai commercial.
Yeah, that's
So I don't
genius.
know if that was like a deleted scene or if they just did that on purpose just for the sake of the trailer.
Yeah, that had to be. I mean, they did that. That's not a mistake. That's definitely
Yeah.
intentional.
What about you? What's your next one? Your number 2?
My number 2 is Sam and Miguel breaking up.
Oh,
You hate to see it, but I mean, as much as I love Miguel and hate seeing his little heartbreak, Sam needs it, and she was very mature about it. Both of them handled the situation very well, but I don't think it's the end of anything. I was definitely wrong. I definitely said that, oh, Miguel and Sam are just going to be a couple and there's not going to be any drama there. And I was completely wrong about that. But, she went into her deprivation tank, which is not a deprivation tank, as Moon says, it's a self actualization pod. And she, discovers herself and sees that she needs to really find out who she is. And that's totally relatable. And I think we're going to see a lot of growth from Sam this season as well. And I'm hopeful for her. I didn't expect them to break up this season, so that is definitely a big shock to me.
yeah. Even when Miguel went over there, maybe I'm just naive, but I didn't even think the breakup was going to happen at that point. I felt like they were going to smooth things over. But so yeah, it definitely
Yeah.
took me by surprise. And it makes me wonder though, is this the writers just continuing to shine a little bit of light on the mental health aspect? Or maybe is this completely separate from like the anxiety and panic attacks that
Well,
she
I think all of it is a contributing factor, and we've kind of seen this when we see her in her self-actualization pod. We see all of these factors that are contributing to her anxiety and what's taking her focus away from herself. And Tori is a part of that. But, it's also her dad. It's also Miguel. It's all of it. It's all of it, this pressure that she's been put on her. And I don't think she wants to hate Miguel. So I think, Miguel is the one person that she can separate herself from in this situation without, causing too much damage because she doesn't have to have a boyfriend. She needs to focus on herself, which I can respect that.
yeah, and I also think it opens up the door as far as the storyline with her not being attached to Miguel, especially since we know that Robbie at some point comes back
Mm.
and is training with her, Miguel, and all the other Miyagi-Do students. So I feel like it kind of opens up the door a little bit for more things to happen and more things to evolve with them not kind of being attached as a couple anymore.
Yeah, which I mean, I didn't figure that they would focus on it too much, but maybe they just don't even focus on it at all. Maybe, that was just their way of not focusing on it was to be able to so that people don't, say, "Well, why didn't we see a lot of Sam and Miguel together?" They just went ahead and, broke them up, so
Yeah.
that she can actually focus on herself, which is smart writing as well.
Yeah, but
Um,
I'm still convinced their relationship's still going to play a huge role.
oh yeah, they definitely still need each other because they definitely have a bond that's important to both of them.
I'm going to venture out to say that within 2, 3, 4 episodes at the most, they're back together.
You think I don't know if they'll get back together that soon, but I think they will get back together by the
I
end of the
mean,
show for sure.
seriously, if they can only spend less than 2 episodes on the whole Miguel going to another country to find his biological dad, surely it won't take a long time for 2 high school teenagers to break up and get back together, which usually
True.
happens within 24 hours. But like you
True,
said,
but
who knows? Who
they've
knows?
they've
But
they've broke up and spent a long time apart as well too. So I could see it still playing out. That one's also a slow burn.
yeah.
Um,
And
it's
we joked recently about, thinking maybe the writers were listening to us because and writers, if you are listening to us, we would love some sponsors or some
for real. Sponsors would be great.
but I had made the point when they first started dealing with her mental health that I was a little afraid that they almost oversimplified it. So this almost speaks to me as far as okay, no, we're not done with that. there's still a lot going on with Sam and what she's struggling with mental health, with self-care,
Mm-hmm.
with all of that. So I was kind of pleased to see that part because, like I said, I was a little concerned they oversimplified it. Maybe they heard me, and then it was like, all right, let's unpack this a little bit more.
All right. I'm going to go into my number one, which is probably no shock to you. Mike fucking Barnes. Man, that storyline, that was my favorite part of, which is why it's my number one. Love that. That was so great. It threw me for a loop the whole time. I enjoyed that whole scene with him. The phone call mistake was hilarious. That was my first. I was like, oh man, like Chosen's already on the phone with him. Like there's about to be a fight, and we're about to see a fight in the furniture store. And so then we find out, oh, it's a fake out. He's really talking about furniture. And then Daniel takes the phone away. And so I'm like, oh man, they're about to start fighting because of this. And then no, everything's fine. It's all a big joke. And then Chosen comes in out of nowhere and actually starts a fight. And then Mike can actually still fight. It's great. We see Chosen and Mike fighting in a furniture store. Mike's handling his own pretty well against Chosen, while Daniel's all trying to stop it and gets a punch in the face. It's just a great scene. And then he gives, Daniel some information. We find out, him and Daniel he actually has no ill will towards Daniel at all. He actually helps Daniel because, he realizes he's one of the few ex Cobra Kai that, doesn't have bad blood between Daniel. So I loved the Mike Barnes stuff. Loved every bit of it. And then we find out at the end of episode 3 that his business got burnt down by Silver. And so throughout the episode, up until after he gave the information to Daniel, I thought he was going to be out of the episode and out of the series. But now, since he's had his place burned down, like, is he going to actually join Miyagi-Do? Where is this going to take us? Like, this is great. I'm so excited. And that's the most excited thing I'm excited for to see is, where does the Mike Barnes stuff go from here? I could be let down. That could be just the total end of the episode. Maybe he shows back up at the end or something, but I'm thinking he's going to be a bigger part of the season.
So we actually have the same number one.
Perfect.
But I actually saved it for my number one, not because it was maybe the one that spoke most to me, but just because it was really the ending.
Yeah.
To me, that was that other when his furniture store got burned.
Yeah.
And I was just I was not expecting. I was like, wow, whoa, okay. He just took it to a whole other disturbing level.
He really did. And so now, like, that's another thing is it's just like, where do we go from here? Like, where does Silver go from here? Like, what's the next thing? And oh man.
So I'm gonna throw out a couple of different points since we both had the same one.
Yeah.
I mean, this was another area which I think we both came up with this theory because we both talked about how he wasn't featured in the trailer, but he was confirmed for the season. And we were like, what if he's brought in to be on Daniel's side?
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what happened at first, which I pretty much saw like the initial scene at the furniture store where Daniel's overhearing the conversation. I kind of saw that as just the classic buildup of just the misunderstanding, pulling words out of context because you don't have all the details. So all that kind of played out like I thought it would. And then from there, it all kind of played out like I thought it would in that situation. So once we saw the scene where he was at the country club where Silver kind of ran into Daniel and Chosen. So of course, Daniel reached out and brought in Chosen. So Silver kind of made the comments like, well, I got some old friends that I can call into as well.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you might have been like me. My first thought didn't go to Mike Barnes. It went to the people that we've seen in the trailer, that one particular woman, and then a bunch of what you assume is going to be other senseis or people that he's going to use.
Yeah.
Obviously, Daniel's mind immediately went to Mike Barnes. So from that very moment, I kind of figure, all right, Silver didn't reach out to Mike Barnes. So I don't think Silver has any association with Silver anymore. And that's pretty much what we saw play out. But what did you think about his entrance into the series? It was very, very, very low key compared to, let's say, like an Alley, where they spent almost nearly every episode talking about her for almost 3 seasons. He's not even mentioned. I mean, within the show. I mean, outside of the show. I mean, we knew he was confirmed for season 5, but it's like as soon as Daniel mentions him, then the next scene you just kind of see him, I guess, at his house walking out to his car. So, what did you think about his entrance and just kind of the way it played out from there?
I mean, I think it was great. I think it's the exact opposite of the alley situation, which is, I think, a better payoff. We're all wondering, like, well, why haven't they, well, I mean, I say we because I didn't watch the show, but I'm assuming, people that were more familiar with it are like, is Mike Barnes going to show up? When's Mike going to show up? When's Mike going to show up? And so nobody's, and they haven't brought it up. And so as soon as they bring it up, nobody's really expecting anything because, oh, he's just a furniture store guy. But just his involvement in reaching out and him helping has made a big impact and is taking it to another level. He made more of an impact than Allie did in the show so far as what I can tell. When you build up to something for so long, you expect a big payout. And so you don't know what to expect. With him, it just happened so fast. You didn't have a time to process about where's this all going to fit in and how can this play out. And it worked well in my favor because I got tricked in every way that the show wanted to trick me. So it worked.
Yeah. So I'm probably going to go the other direction on where they go from here.
Mm.
I still think he's done. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he reacts in a way to, his business being burned to the ground to where he's like, all right, that's it. All right, Daniel, you got me. I just get this vibe that he's ready to be done with that side of his life, in that past. And he doesn't want to be associated with Silver. I mean, he didn't even want to be involved with Daniel's fight against Silver. And he said, he did offer up a little bit of information, but that was the only involvement he wanted. Obviously, he can go 2 different directions, but I think he's going to go the direction that this is going to scare him and that he thinks that any more involvement is only going to bring more events like this to him and his family. I think he just wants to, I think he's just going to cut his losses and be like, look, this dude's bad news. I think he's just going to regret that he helped Daniel at all. And I don't see him joining the fight at all. Maybe that's why he's not featured in the trailer. Maybe that's why there's not a lot of attention paid to him, that he played, like you said, his role was definitely a lot bigger than Allie, even though it was much more low key. I mean, he played a huge part in the storyline. I don't think they do a whole lot with his character from here on out. Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. I mean, so far you're beating me pretty bad on some of these guesses. So maybe you beat me on the whole Miguel's father and the amount of time in Mexico. So maybe I'll win this one, but we'll see. But you had mentioned the whole scene with Chosen when he shows up to help Daniel. There was something that bothered me about that whole exchange. Not so much the fight with Mike Barnes, but like there towards the end when they show, I guess, all of his workers that he beat up, I guess, on the way in.
Yeah.
It kind of made me wonder. We've talked about this a number of times, but more so in a positive light. I might talk about it in a slightly negative light. Is the show becoming a little too silly in spots? And the reason I bring that up now is because with season 5 and Terry Silver, the drama and intensity has been amped up big time. Silver is a completely different monster than Kreese. Most of Kreese's terror was through the actions kind of his students. Maybe the exception of when he put the snake in the dealership. But with Silver, I mean, anybody that crosses him in any way literally has to feel for their safety, their well-being, even their very own life. And I love that about it. I love that it's been amped up. But it almost makes me wonder if they need to tone down some of the silly spots. Now, like Johnny's humor, love it. That still fits in perfectly. Some of the I'm not saying they need to cut out the comedy by any means. That I love it, has a great spot, but sometimes there's a few spots where it makes me just question, is that a little out of place? Is that a little, because to me, if you mix in too much silly stuff, it kind of detracts from the more serious and intense dramatic elements that you're trying to instill as well.
Jeff, if this show has taught me anything, it's that balance is important. And when you go too far on one side, you got to go too far on the other side to make it even, or else it just gets all out of whack, man. And then people fall in water. That's how it happens.
I don't know, man. I'm struggling with this one. And like I said, I think there's plenty of comedy that really works well, but the whole thing where he beat up all 4 guys on the outside, I don't know. It just to me came across a little bit too silly, but
No, I see where you're coming from. I mean, at least it wasn't any like, when they start playing yakety sax and everything, playing everything in fast forward motion, then I'll jump on board with you.
yeah.
But I do, I mean, I get what you're saying. That was a little sophomoric, a little bit, just a little bit child. But it could be a way for them to try to retain some of the, younger audience that the show's gotten, just from the earlier seasons as well.
Yeah.
Because you don't want too young of a kids to attention to, I don't know. I'll probably
Yeah, I
cut
mean-
that out anyways.
I mean, speaking of Silver, though, is it just me or is the dude a really good actor?
Yeah.
I've been really, really impressed because I looked him up and he's not really done any acting since like 2005. He's been more on the producing side of things.
Mhm.
And even when he was acting, I mean, he didn't really get a lot of major roles. I'm like, wow, he's really impressed me like big time. I'm just amazed that he hasn't, and maybe that was just never an ambition of his as far as being, an A-list actor, and that's always possible. But I've been really impressed with what he's brought ever since he showed up.
Well, what's your honorable mention this week?
My honorable mention is a trifecta of dudes. It is Miguel, Eli, and Dimitri. Is my honorable mention. And I loved when Sam was having the girl trouble. I'm sorry, when Miguel was having this girl trouble with Sam, and he's getting advice from Dimitri and Eli. And at first I'm like, oh, is it this ironic?
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, it didn't dawn on me until like hours after I'd watched these episodes that in season 1, when Miguel first meets Dimitri and Eli, and it's them three sitting at a table, and they're all staring at another table on the other side of the cafeteria that has the 3 it girls, the 3 hottest girls in high school. Parker, who were those 3 girls?
It was the same 3 girls that they're dating now.
Exactly.
Well, were dating.
Well, yeah, but at the time, I mean, Miguel and Sam were still technically together.
Yeah, 2/3 of them are still dating.
But for some reason, that never really. I mean, of course, I knew Eli was with Moon, and I knew they were all with one another, but it didn't dawn on me until how far they've come since season 1, from being the losers at the loser table to all thinking, oh, those girls, that's not even obtainable. Kind of like Dimitri said, no, It's like, why don't you ever go for it? Because O for O is better than O for 1.
Yeah.
You have to kind of know your place in the world, and it's just really cool. But all those scenes where they were kind of trying to help Miguel out, and probably one of the funniest things to me in between these 2 episodes was when Miguel was looking at the jewelry with the octopus and all that kind of stuff, and of course it was too expensive. And Eli's like, "Do you have one with fewer tentacles?"
Yeah. Yeah, that was great.
I love that. Of course, Johnny, he had his funny stuff in there as always. But so yeah, my honorable mention goes to those 3 guys, and just seeing where they've come from and where they're at now. But I'm really anxious to hear your honorable mention.
My honorable mention was honestly Eli as well, but just specifically Eli. We see him. We didn't see very much of him, but in that scene that you were talking about, we see him getting a tattoo cover up. He's gotten a lotus flower to cover it up, which means a new beginning. We find out he actually seems really content, really happy, and before he kind of gets overshadowed by the always anxious Dimitri, he actually was given some good advice there for a second, as far as how to respond to Sam and about communicating. And then then Dimitri, comes up and gives his not so great anxious advice. Yeah, that's my honorable mention.
You always surprise me with these little picks at the end. You always come from an angle that, like your dud of the week last week. I definitely didn't see that one coming. And I still want you to show me those swim trunks, because I did take a screenshot of what that guy was wearing. So,
oh, I'll grab them right here. All right, here you go.
All right, I'm pulling up my screenshot now. Somehow I've lost my screenshot, but yeah, that looks pretty spot on. So to all the listeners out there, we may be selling some trunks that are straight from the set of Cobra Kai,
aka my ass.
Now, don't pay any attention if you think what you're buying is too small for the character you saw. They always do that on film, that they had to make him look bigger than he really was.
Hey, now I've been in the gym. Calm down. All right. So, who is your dude or dud of the week, Jeff?
Or dudette. I had a dudette last week.
Hey. We are all children of Kel Mitchell, and if there's one thing we know from Good Burger, it's that I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes.
I sit corrected. All right, so my pick for dude of the week is actually kind of a sympathy pick. He's been mentioned a few times, and you've actually mentioned the scenarios of why I'm picking this one. But my dude of the week is Miguel, just because the poor kid went through it these two episodes. I mean, they've really challenged it. He's a really good actor, and they've really challenged him with some tough stuff, especially with season 2, how it ended and how season 3 began. But my gosh, he goes through the heartbreak of finding out the truth about his dad, and of course never getting to the point to where he can reveal to the guy that hey, I'm your son. Probably best he didn't get to that point, since the guy is bad news. But man, you just see his heartbreak. But a very touching scene there with Johnny and him being reunited. Of course, that quickly got interrupted by the realization that Robbie came along for the ride. Ironic that some of the most touching scenes we've seen this entire series involve Johnny, which I would have never guessed after watching the first season. But just shows his growth as a character.
Yeah, and just to talk about his acting real quick, like even the 2 ways he cries, like the crying performance he gives with Johnny after we find out about his dad, he's both sad and scared, and you kind of see that, like the way he portrays that. And then when he cries with Sam, it was just a totally different cry. You can just tell it was like a heartbroken cry, which is a totally different cry.
Yes, I mean, I fell for the dude so much, man.
Yeah,
I mean, he's already dealing with the whole thing in Mexico, and then now, I mean, we've kind of always known from the beginning that it's Miguel and Sam. They're kind of like the Allie and Daniel, and like I said, we were both caught off guard. I didn't see that coming, and then it's like, gosh, this poor kid. I mean, my goodness, you just wanted to hug him. So it might be out of sympathy, but also for just some great acting from the kid. But yeah, my dude of the week is Miguel. So who is your dude or dud of the week?
Okay, so my dud of the week, and he didn't have a name, so I'm going to call him the chili pepper guy. I'm only calling him a dud because he was a bad guy, I guess, or well, an obstacle. He wasn't necessarily a bad guy. He was just doing his thing. But man, this guy, he looked like Uncle Fester on meth. Like he was crazy. And I don't know if you noticed this, but one thing, and some stuff, weird stuff will stand out to me sometimes about, certain people. And for some reason, this actor, every time he chewed, he had these muscles on the top of his head that flexed every time. And I literally had to go and get food to chew, and I'm like, do I have muscles on the top of my head that flex like that every time? And I don't. So I don't know if you're listening to this right now and you're not chewing and feeling the top of your head to see if you have the muscles, then something's wrong. You and I are not the same, because I saw that and I noticed it, and I immediately was just like, what is that? What's going on with his muscles on top of his head? His chewing muscles are not where they're supposed to be.
I wonder how many different podcasts there are about Cobra Kai. I'm willing to bet that nobody has talked about the pepper guy.
Those muscles, man,
and his head
muscles. Those muscles on top of his head. His chewing muscles tripped me out, man. Not even gonna lie. I noticed them the first time and they just stood out. That's literally all I could focus on the second time I watched it. I was like, whoa, what is going on there? So that is my dud of the week. Jeff, do you have anything else this week?
That scene that you mentioned, any doubt or question? Did you suspect at all that Robbie actually ate that pepper?
I thought he ate the pepper, to be honest. I thought he did.
I knew he didn't. Just the whole thing he was doing with his hands, and I just thought the movement was a little weird.
Mm.
I didn't think he was eating the candy. I just thought he was fake chewing. But yeah, I knew for a fact he didn't eat that thing.
Well, good call on you because he tricked me.
But dude, it was awesome. We got 2 episodes in, so we gave our listeners, twice the content for the same amount of money.
Yes.
Granted, they're not paying for it.
For free.
Yeah.
Free fitty.
And for us, it's good because now, we get to watch 2 episodes at a time instead of just one. So,
But if you do want to help us out there, we do have a Patreon that you can help us out and change that.
Woo, woo. For starving artists like ourselves.
We will be coming up with more stuff on that. So if you check that out and seen that, right now, we don't really have that, but we will be coming up with some stuff and some ideas to come up with that too. So,
well, as always, that was fun. Thank you guys for supporting us and for listening. We're excited to keep along with Cobra Kai. We're hoping that you've enjoyed season 5 as much as we have so far. And gosh, we still got 7 episodes left. So can't wait to see what happens and what Parker and I can unpack and discuss. And hope you guys are enjoying the discussion. We're definitely having fun discussing it. So again, hope you guys keep listening. Thank you so much for coming along this ride with us. So throw it to you, Parker.
Big thanks to my co-host Jeff, and a bigger thanks to you for listening. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. 5 stars and a comment really do help these dudes out. If you have a thought or idea about what we're watching, please email us at streamingwith2dudes@gmail.com or request to join our Streaming with 2 Dudes Facebook group. Links to our Patreon and socials are in the show notes. Thanks again, and remember, when you see a speed hump sign, that's not a challenge.